So I just narrated this whole game. Did a decent job. Not my best work, but not my worst work. And I clicked delete by accident instead of stop. Um, but I think it worked out for the better because now I kind of know what I need to do. So, yeah, here we are, PO Tournament Finals. Finch versus user. I can't remember his name. I said I was gonna go look it up in between games, and I had the opportunity to not even have to say I'm gonna look it up. To just go ahead look it up, and I didn't do it. I think his name on the forums is Cause and Effect, or like Parabolic Mess or something. Maybe it's both, and he had a name change or something. I don't know. But this battle, his name is Nagide. In the first game, I called him Nugent. But I have since realized my dyslexia, and do I just Nagai? Is that supposed to mean something? I feel like that's supposed to mean. What's that say backwards? Nayugan. Huh. Maybe he's supposed to sound like win or something. I don't know. I'm not in the loop anymore. But yeah, his team is looking pretty good versus Finch. Azu just takes a dump on everything. Like Finch literally can't switch in. He has no switches to. Well, if it's CB, then Finch has to basically win 50-50s every time, and even then, like nothing wants to take CB as you hit. And then if it's drum, once again Finch has to play around it, and he really has to not get his main weakened. If he hasn't revealed if it's drum Azu yet or not, because if main gets weakened, how much does +5 jet do to main? Or +4, or yeah, +4. I want to say it doesn't kill, but I want to say it does like 90-ish%, so it's like, or like somewhere between 80 and 90, so it's like main can't even switch into rocks. So, but the good news is that Finch has a Starmie, which beats Hippowdon, but at the same time, Yugen has a Weavile, which could be a problem for the Starmie. It might not be, though, because if you look at Yugen's team, he has the Wobbuffet. And so normally when you see Zard plus a mon that can learn Pursuit, such as Weavile, you think Zard Y. But when you see Wobbuffet there, what Wobbuffet usually tends to do is Wobbuffet gets paired with setup sweepers. So, like, it can remove certain checks and counters to mons that inhibit the setup sweepers, or it can use Encore, and then certain mons can use mons that have just got Encored to set up with, if that made any sense. Which is why I thought that this might be like Drum Azu, and then he's trying to fake Zard Y, but it's actually Zard X. And then it might be like low kick Weavile to help deal with Heatran with Belly Drum Azu. So I mean, it's bad for Finch because it could be both, and it could viably be both Zard Y and Zard X. So he really has to play around it. But in my gut, I was kind of thinking that he was trying to fake you out with the Zard Y, and it's actually Zard X. Just because of the presence of Wobbuffet. It could easily just be Wobbuffet's there, and it's Zard Y, and it's like something like SD Weavile, or maybe it's Zard Y with Drum Azu on the same team. Who knows, but in Finch's case, Manectric puts in a fair amount of work. If it's Zard Y, main's going to be looking pretty nice. Like I said, main is how Finch is going to contain the Azu. Weavile, main also helps deal with. And then Latios, main can just Volt Switch on, and then he goes to Clef or Tar, probably Tar. Because, yeah, Clef, I'm guessing, is... Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be physically defensive, but it kind of helps if it's more physically defensive inclined. And then Hippo's Spadef anyway, so it's like main does pretty well, but Hippo needs to get out of the way. But once again, Finch does have a Starmie. Although he can't really play Starmie willy-nilly if that is Pursuit Weavile, although I don't know, I kind of doubt it. Well, he has Wobbuffet too, so it's like he doesn't even need Pursuit Weavile to trap it because he can just go to Wobbuffet. And then, yeah, if Lottie comes in, then Tar's there to help main with that. Lando's also there for the Volt turn to help things get in safe. And then late game, Zard gets out of the way, and that's not Poison Jab Weavile, and it's not CB Azu, then Clef can put in some work, but this has almost gone for 6 minutes while my other one was a lot shorter. But yeah, I think that one's a lot more in depth though, so I think Mugen definitely has the advantage versus Finch, but Finch definitely has some ways that he can break through. At least that's the way I see it. So both players lead, and I think they both make their best leads because Azu just shits on Finch's team, so I think that just leading with Azu and see where that gets Mugen was the best play for him. And then Finch leads with Lando because if he leads with something like Hippo or even Wobbuffet or something, then Finch has the opportunity to get up rocks. Or I wouldn't know. That's kind of a tough versus Wobbuffet, but versus Hippo definitely. And if he does actually lead with Azu or just something else, then he gets the Intimidate off, which is going to make it do less damage. So I think both players made their best lead right there. And Finch is just going to U-turn, as this Azu's probably going to, like, waterfall. Whoa, no, no. We see Whirlpool Azu. Holy moly. And Whirlpool Perish Song. The scum sets are out. And yeah, Mugen really wants that trophy. He really wants that dub. No, I'm just clowning. It's actually a pretty neat set. Whirlpool Perish Song. That's something that I know a decent amount of people were experimenting with, like when Perish Song Azu just came out, because I believe it came out early this gen, or legal with Whirlpool, if I remember correctly. But it hasn't seen that much usage just because the other sets are so good. But yeah, pairing the Perish Song Trapper with a Shadow Tag user is a pretty cool strat. That's some double strats, but Wobbuffet's gonna end up going. But yeah, the Starmie goes down, which is pretty bad for Finch, especially if that's, well, I don't know if that's necessarily bad because Starmie was primarily water resist, but now we know that's not offensive Azu, so I guess that's not the worst thing. I mean, the rocks are gonna be annoying, but it's not the worst thing. And then Wobbuffet goes down, which is pretty good for Finch because that's just another less annoyance. So we do see that it is Zard X right there, and Heatran comes in to absorb the Will-O-Wisp. Finch just trying to scout what Zard it is. Heatran's a pretty good answer because a lot of them don't carry EQ nowadays. Well, that's actually not true. Some carry EQ, some don't carry EQ, and Mugen probably wasn't going to go for EQ right there on the Lando. And Finch is going to make a smart play, go back to Lando, scouting for EQ. As Mugen doesn't really reveal his cards right there, and he just goes for another Will-O-Wisp. And Finch either predicts Mugen to go to Latios, predicting the Lando to come back in, or he just goes to Tar, figuring that the Zard doesn't have like it doesn't have what's the attack called? Like the Zard doesn't have EQ, so he's pretty safe just to do whatever, and the Zard might get forced out and go to Latios or whatever on whatever Heatran wants to throw at Zard. And this T-Tar is pretty bulky. I think that's like bulky band. Not too sure. But yeah, it's going to be able to take out that Latios. So T-Tar's putting in some nice work. But Weavile's going to come in and take out the Tar. But Weavile, which is another problem on the Finch's team, has to take a lot of damage. Heat Train comes in though, making us think that it's probably Scarf, and we see later that it actually is. But it misses the Fire Blast, which is unfortunate versus Hippowdon. And on Mugen's team, this is probably Spadef Hippo, so we don't know how much that mattered. But it definitely would have mattered to the point where Hippowdon would have had to slack off. And then if the Fire Blast crit, whatever, we don't know. And then Finch gets a little unlucky as the main comes in. But Mugen Zard gets caught off guard right there. Also, I just want to point out that Mugen is running Roar Hippo. I'd like to hear his reasoning on Roar Hippo, because yeah, at least from what I understand, Whirlwind is just objectively better, unless they change some things because it has lesser priority and because of the way things work. If you're in like a Roar v Roar situation, well, actually that's not necessarily true. I think it goes before Trick Room. So I think it forces out like Trick Room users, whereas I don't know how it works in regards to like Trick Room, but I know the main reason is like for sound, or at least that's what we did in 5th gen. Was that if like Espeon's gone and they pass to Mr. Mime, then you Whirlwind, and the sound doesn't get blocked. But yeah, that's just something interesting that I pointed out. But the Zard doesn't have enough speed, and that is offensive SR lane to I, as evidenced by the lack of leftover. So Mugen should have picked up on that and not risked his Zard if he knew that he wasn't running enough speed, which, getting to the finals, he should know he's not running enough speed. But Lando's going to end up going down anyway, revenged by Weavile, but now Heat Train can revenge Weavile. So, 3 vs 2, Finch is in a pretty solid situation. But we see Clef coming in. He just wants to Moonblast because he doesn't want to give Azu the free opportunity to Perish Song. And depending on how rolls work, potentially trap Clef, because Clef, if Azu goes down or gets low enough, can win the game for Finch. And if it's not last mon and Azu can't get off a Perish Song. So Finch is getting sort of unlucky. I don't know what coverage move the Heat Train has. I don't believe Scarf Train runs HP Ice anymore. Yeah, that's not fully Spadef, because I know if it's fully physically defensive, it does closer to half, but fully Spadef does less than that. So I think that's kind of in the middle. I don't know, something like 144 careful or whatever. Not too sure on my EVs, but that sounds about right. Okay, so now Finch Calm Minds, because I guess he figures the Hippo's going to slack off and he wants to put some pressure on Mugen's team. And Fable's going to get a nice payback crit right there with the Moonblast. When I say payback, I mean payback for some of the Fire Blast misses. Or one Fire Blast miss. Oops, spoilers, but yeah, Finch, because the Whirlpool hasn't gone up, he can pretty much stay in. But Hippowdon is going to come in, predicting one of the other 2 mons to come in, because Finch can't stand, because Azu can live a Moonblast, and then he can just go for Whirlpool. So Mugen makes a smart play right there, and Mugen can't really, or Finch can't switch out. So, well, I mean, I guess he could switch to Clef, but I think that brings like crit rolls into things. So I guess Finch just decides to stay in, or figures that Mugen's going to roar. But he misses Fire Blast anyway, and Mugen just plays it safe and goes for EQ. And now because Finch can't break through Hippowdon, this is a problem. Oh yeah, that's something that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the match. Like when I saw this match the first time, I had this all memorized out, and I was super pro, and I forgot to say it both times I narrated. And at the end, I was so pissed because I forgot to mention it. I forgot to mention it again at team preview. But Finch's team has pretty much no way to break through like Spadef Hippowdon, except for Starmie. Which part of me thinks that this should be offensive Starmie to help with that farther, because if it's like fully Spadef Hippowdon, it's a problem. But at the same time, he has Scarf Tran, he has Clef too. And if it's Spadef Hippowdon, Lando T, especially because it's offensive with Earthplate, deals with it better. But Finch's team kind of struggles with breaking through Hippowdon, and losing Starmie early on actually really blows for him, because Hippowdon just walls his shit so much better, and then Weavile just breaks all the stuff that Hippowdon can't break. So when Starmie went down versus Wobbuffet, I believe I said that that wasn't important. I kind of lied. That's actually kind of a big deal because it makes Hippowdon really difficult for Finch to break. And we're starting to see it at this point that Finch just can't break through Hippowdon's fat. And we see Heatran go down. We're now seeing Maine go down. And now Les Monclef. Finch pretty much can't win at that point. Okay, I'm glad I remembered to say that and correct myself, because I was super MLG Pro at Team Preview when I saw the game the first time, and I forgot to mention it, but I mentioned it now. But yeah, pretty much all Mugen has to do is get Azu in, and it can live a +1 Calm Mind after lefties at that point. So whether Finch Moonblast, so Moonblast was his best play, just because if Finch got a crit there, then he actually would have won the game, because it's last Monclef. But if you set up a Calm Mind there, then Azu would have just outsped and then gone for Perish Song anyway, and then just won right there. Because as we're seeing, these +1 Calm Minds aren't doing half to Hippowdon because Hippowdon is fat. And the scum strats end up working, and Mugen wins. Man, I'm clouded too hard, but yeah, that was a pretty well played game, I think, from both sides. I think Mugen had a definite team advantage, but he played it properly, which is always good, because just because you have team advantage doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to win, because you can sometimes choke. Sometimes you're not going to make the most optimal plays because, you know, it's a high pressure situation, and then sometimes when you have team advantage, I think you get a little too comfortable, and you end up not making the best plays just because you're comfortable. And then I think Finch did the best that he could with that situation, because there's no way in heck that he was supposed to expect Whirlpool, Perish Song, Azu, which cost him his Starmie, which, like I said, was kind of a big deal, because Hippowdon is kind of lame-o for Finch's team. And that's basically how the game went. Starmie went down, and Mugen smartly kept Azu around so that Clef couldn't set up, and Hippowdon was just fat. So game 2 will be coming up shortly. Hope you all enjoyed. Hopefully I don't click delete this time. And yeah, later.